Now let's move on to the next session on the theme of Bridging the Digital Divide, Connectivity, Infrastructure, and Investment for Digital Inclusion and Equitable Access. The panelists are Mr. Christopher Fabian, co-founder of Giga. Ms. Maja Andjelkovic, Senior Private Sector Specialist at the World Bank. Ms. Talitha Amalia, co-founder at Solve Education Foundation. The session is moderated by Mr. Patrick Newell, professor at Shizenkan University.
All right, welcome everybody. If you'd like to move forward, Mai no seki.
They're like, absolutely not.
Sure.
We're going to stay exactly where we are.
ありがとうございます。手前の席でよろしくお願いします。So today we're going to talk about technology and its transformative role of creating a sustainable, equitable world by enabling digital access to all. Digital inclusivity is the cornerstone to achieving such broader sustainability goals. In Japan, there's a lot of discussion about SDG and sustainability and Society 5.0, so this aligns very much with that. And this session envisions the role of connectivity, infrastructure, and investment as the three key drives of digital inclusion and access. Let me ask you a question. How many of you are students? Okay. Startups? Government officials? Okay, so we have a kind of a mixed crowd. And I guess maybe about 70% are Japanese and 30% are non-Japanese from what I can see in the audience here. And I can see from the headsets as well. So let me set the scene a little bit. As of 2025, there's 2.6 billion people, roughly 1/3 of the global population, that remains offline. They do not have access to the internet. That's a huge number of people. And of course, not having access to the internet limits education, healthcare, financial services, job opportunities, and really affects the progress of SDG goals. And in many rural populations, they don't have access, women don't have access, and low-income communities are really affected by this. So we have three experts with us today, and the panelists will be in this order. We'll have Talitha first, then Christopher, and then Maja. So please, Talitha, please start.
Okay.
And please stand if you don't mind.
All right.
You have a clicker as well.
Over there?
Sure, wherever you'd like.
Okay. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I'm Talitha from Indonesia. I'm going to be talking about my journey. Let's start. So, what you see here is where I grew up in Indonesia. I hope you can hear me okay, right? So I grew up in a small village in Indonesia, and when I was growing up, we didn't have electricity. We didn't have internet. I mean, we did have electricity, but most of the time we didn't. But even without access, I had dreams. So, at the age of 16, in the early 2000s, I decided that I can move to another city. So I did move to a city called Bandung in Indonesia, alone, with no money, well, limited amount of money, equivalent to $5 to my name, and I didn't go straight to university. I had to work to survive. I mean, how could I apply to university? I had no money, right? But in that place, in that city, that's where I first accessed internet. I was so mind blown, and it opened up the world to me. I saw a lot of opportunities for a girl like me to apply for scholarships to study abroad, and that's what I did. So that experiences changed the course of my life. After completing my studies abroad, I came back to my village. So that's actually a picture of me and the students in my village in Cicurug, Sukabumi. I was so happy coming back at home, but I didn't just come back with a degree. I came back with a mission. I wanted to help other young people from the same villages as mine to access opportunities as I did, the same opportunity as I did. And before I can do that, I realized that the challenge in Indonesia is bigger than one place. In my country, we have over 17,000 islands. And the people there, you know, we have a lot of languages. I think it's over 700 languages. In fact, English was not even my second language. We have a lot of languages, and everybody speaks different languages. So it was really difficult for me to help other young people outside my village, my community. But then, technology, I encountered digital technology, the power of digital technology. And that's where I can reach youth far beyond my village. So I'd like you to meet Tania. So that's Tania, the girl you see on screen. She's now 22 years old and once our learner, and now she is a leader. She's so dedicated, she climbs the hill to help other children learn in her village. Tania is the reason why I do this. Tania is the reason why we do this. And because of Tania, I realized that when we invest in the right technology, in the right tools, we see learners that do not just improve themselves in terms of learning outcomes, but they can inspire others too. So I'm so inspired by Tania because she's not just learning for herself, she's lifting others. How do we do this at scale? I think that's the question, right? We use GAIN, that's our engagement engine. It's a framework we use to scale our solution. G stands for gamification, because let's face it, I mean, most of you here are students, I was a student myself. It was so hard for me to keep my motivation going. So we need to find a way to make learning playful, fun, but still purposeful. A stands for AI coach. So we build an AI mentor that is available for our learners 24/7. No judgment, very patient mentor, right? And this AI coach can adapt to your learning needs and learning pace, which is very important because everyone has different pace and needs. I stands for incentives. So the rewards we give, combining digital rewards and real life rewards as well. So we give out digital badges, digital rewards to scholarships for our learners that keep their motivation going. And lastly, N stands for network. We build a strong learning community where our learners can connect with their peers, with mentors, and industry experts from all around the world. And if you are interested to volunteer with us, as industry experts, sharing your knowledge, your skills, experiences, as well as your wisdom, we are so welcome you into our team. So maybe we can chat after this. Today, we have over 1.5 million beneficiaries in 5 countries. And we have been collaborating with over 1,500 collaborators and partners around the world. And every month, we have more than 100,000 learners coming to use our platform to learn and improve their lives. For us, and for me especially, technology is a double-edged sword. It can divide us, or it can transform our lives. And it did change my life. It definitely changed Tanya's lives. And if we can use technology wisely, we can help millions more youth like you see here on screen from around the world. So let's build bridges, not widen gaps. Thank you very much.
Thank you. May I ask you a question before you sit down? Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Yeah. What's your biggest challenge right now?
Can I sit down?
Yeah,
Or? Okay.
however you like, sure. What's your biggest challenge right now?
As an individual or?
As an organization, right? So you went back to your village, right? You started this organization and you're using technology, it's scaling, you're impacting people from around the world. 5 years from now, where do you see it? What's your biggest challenge that you're facing right now?
I think we see a lot of collaboration going in terms of improving access to digital infrastructure, which is fantastic, right? But I think barriers to accessing technology is not only about infrastructure, sometimes it's invisible. So, for example, women and underserved communities, they also face different cultural expectations and lack of confidence, things like that. So when you want to, propose a solution, work with communities, I'd say, try to learn from them first, try to actively listen to what they need, because for me, technology is just a tool. Before AI was happening, we didn't start off with AI, right? We just focused on gamification. Now we see AI as one of the, sexy, thing that we can use to improve our education offering. So we grab that opportunity. But at the end of the day, something that we don't change is how we interact with community, because I think true innovation or inclusive innovation starts or begins with trust. Then the tools follow.
And we had an opportunity to chat a little bit. And what you shared with me, a couple key points, because we have students here and we have some startups here as well. And you have 40 people working with you.
Yes,
right?
Very lean.
But you're impacting 1.5 million people with 40 people. And many of these people have been with you from the beginning. They've been part of this and they've stayed with you. And you also don't have a very large budget for marketing promotion.
No
Why
budget.
is that? What is the secret to that?
I think the difference is the goal, right? I mean, it depends on your goal. We started very small. I was when I was growing up in a village, I almost dropped out of school. And my father said, my father is just a typical dad in my village who thought that girls should get married and then go out of the house and provide the family back, right? So he's very traditional, and he didn't think that education was important for me. But I thought, no, I wanted to pursue education, but it was really, really hard. So I decided to knock on my neighbor's door to ask for help, actually. And one family, and the head of the family, he didn't have so much education or like a higher degree or anything, but he was really progressive. And he said, I'm going to send you to school. you have to finish at least high school, right? So I was really touched by his kindness. And I said, and I was really young at the time, I was so cocky, I said, I will give back your money back, you know, like I will work hard and give your money back. And then he said, no, you don't have to do that. But if you have more money, maybe you can bring your brothers and then send them to schools. I said, yeah, I'll do it. And then he said, follow up, and then he said, if you have more opportunities, maybe you can educate more children in our village. So I was so struck by what he's saying to me. I'm like, this person was working in a factory, right? But he's thinking very progressively, right? And he's not thinking like other men in my village. So I decided from then on, I said, okay, I will be dedicating my life in education. So I pursue studies in education, and then I came back as a teacher, but I realized then I want to impact more people, because as a teacher you can only impact a classroom, one classroom at a time, right? So because of that, when I started Solve Education, I didn't think about making more money or profit. I'm thinking about how can I give back to community. But then as I grow, right, this organization, I had to think about sustainability, financial sustainability. And that's when we started exploring different innovation in financing, I think, which you're going to talk about. So for us, it's about choosing our priority, and because our priority is impacting lives, so we think that marketing budget is not important for us. What matters for us is our trust building and relationship building with the communities that we serve.
Wonderful. So you started off as an NPO, and then you realized that you shifted into being a for-profit as well.
We set up business units to support our nonprofit operations. So now you can say that we are a social enterprise.
Because that in Japan, and I'm sure other countries as well, one of those questions, do you start a nonprofit or do you start for-profit? And you can do both, basically.
You can. You
Wonderful.
can, as long as you focus on the goal that you are aiming to achieve, I think you will find a way.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Thank you. Christopher, please.
Thank you. So we had some new people come. I guess, let me ask the same question again since there's some more people here. Can you just raise your hand? It's good exercise now. Raise your hand if you're working with a startup. 2, 3. Wow, this is a very lucky crowd. 3, 4. Okay, not too much suffering. Raise your hand if you're a teacher or you ever were a teacher or educator. Okay, so everybody else has not suffered as much as those 7 people, but good. I want to follow up on Talitha exactly where you left off. I think your story is so important. It so clearly illustrates many things about your personality, about your strength and vision, and I think also about the need for connectivity, which is what I'll talk about for the next 7 minutes or so. At GIGA, which is a partnership between UNICEF and the International Telecommunications Union, we work to make sure that every school and health center in the world are connected to the internet. That's a very big goal, because as we heard at the beginning, about 1/3 of the world's population is not online currently. So raise your hand once more if you brought your phone today. Did you bring your phone? See, I can see who's lying because your hands aren't raised, or you didn't hear the, okay. Imagine, everybody had their phones, imagine if this part of the audience had no telephone, had no way to access information, had no way to book your taxi. That's about what the world looks like in terms of digital. One of the things we've built at GIGA is a map. I'll show you more about the map, but this is a map of every school in Zimbabwe. All of the dots are schools. All of the green dots are schools that are connected to the internet. All of the red dots on this map are schools that aren't connected. And you can see right there, because a school is a community, it's a node on the network. You can see the places where internet is, where opportunity is, where Talitha could have maybe not had to go to another place and struggle with having such a small amount of money and having to work right away, but got some of that knowledge from the beginning. And you can see the places where young people do have opportunity. We were very much inspired by the work of Japan 5.0. by the idea that a connected society is a stronger society. And when we started Giga 5 years ago, I was actually here in Tokyo at the very beginning. We started it really with that idea that the more we could show where the connectivity is in the world and where it isn't, the more we could inspire companies and governments to help get their young people online. That was before COVID, so a lot has changed. If you'd like, you can scan this QR code and you can actually see the map of the world that we've built live. I'm going to talk about it a little bit more, but if you grab that QR code, you can go and look at 40 countries that we've mapped and see how connected they are. Do it quickly because I'm about to go to the next slide. Giga does 4 things for governments, and we work in 40 countries right now. The first thing is we help with mapping schools and health centers. We help to model information flows. So what you're going to see now is a map of Brazil, and we're going to zoom into Brazil, and you'll see that there are a bunch of green dots that are glowing. That's where we have connectivity, and we're getting that data every 4 hours. It's like seeing where the blood is flowing in the body. And you'll see that in wealthy areas of Brazil, there's more internet, there's connectivity, kids are in school. But look up here, you'll see this red area up in the Amazon. That's the poorest region of the country. That's the part of the country where kids don't go to university, where girls stay at home, where the language of instruction is often in Portuguese, but that's not the language that's read in the Amazon. And if you're a girl growing up in one of these villages with the red dots, you probably have very little idea of what university would even mean to you. We've managed to map 2.2 million schools. We have 100,000 schools giving us this data in real time. And we work with governments like the government of Brazil to make sure that all the red dots turn green. We also help governments with their financing. I'm now going to show you a wealthy country, what a very wealthy country looks like. We're going to go around the world. Sorry, I don't want to stand in front of you. We'll go around the world to Kazakhstan. Look how much green there is there. You see a totally different picture than you saw in Brazil, and then you're going to see in the third country that I'm going to show you. In Kazakhstan, we helped to put together about $1 billion in financing, in government financing for fundamental infrastructure, because it costs a lot of money to connect poor parts of a country. And we're monitoring the connectivity live for almost every school in the country with the government. The ability to have a real map, a map that shows you what's happening, allows you to bring money together that hasn't met the problem before. And we found that to be true in every one of the 40 countries that we work in. I'm going to show you one more country that gives a little bit of a different perspective. The last thing that we do after we've helped governments to find the problem and to find the money is we help them understand how to procure connectivity. If you've written your own contract for internet at your home, if you've signed that contract with your mobile provider, you probably haven't read all of the provisions in it. But internet contracts are complicated. They're complicated for me, for you, they're very complicated for a government. Let me show you another country here. So this is Sierra Leone. You just saw at the beginning how many red dots there are at the national level. The video will loop around again, and you'll see that again. In a country like Sierra Leone, which is one of the poorest countries in Africa, just watch how much red there is. There are about 250 schools that are well connected to the internet. And you can see it live. You can see there are a bunch of green dots blinking in Freetown, in the capital. And other than that, the country's almost all red. We did a study recently with The Economist magazine that shows that if you connected all the schools in Sierra Leone to the internet, you would raise GDP by about 15%. Maybe even a little bit more than that. Connecting a school, connecting a village means that you get blood to flow out to the parts of the body that are not getting it now. It means that you can bring people into the workforce, into the online market. And there are 2 billion consumers that are desperately waiting to have the tools and the ability to come online. So that's quite simple. That's what Giga does. One of the reasons that I'm so happy to be back here after quite a long pause, I love being in Tokyo always, and in the rest of the country as well, is to ask for new ways that the Japanese community of startups, of tech companies, and of financiers can help us make sure that more schools and health centers are connected. And fundamentally, the idea is that the Japanese business community should do that because it's very good for business. 2 billion people is a lot of people to have using your products. And if you are a startup and you're trying to sell something, but you see a lot of red on the map of your market, It's very hard to move your digital product there. We work with companies like Dell, like Equinix, who moves internet cables on the bottom of the ocean and connects them to each other, like IHS Towers, who builds the towers that send phone signals across the air. But we don't work with a lot of Japanese companies yet, because we haven't made the case well enough about how connecting the world is also about connecting Japanese business to opportunities around the world. We work with companies by asking for help on data access to build those maps, by working with networking to bridge financing and technology, and by working with engineers. So we have a lot of open source technologists working with us from the private sector who help us to build the stuff that I just showed you. We'd love to talk more with this in the questions and discussions that follow, but I fully believe that internet connectivity is a human right. It's something that everybody should have access to. It's as important as the other things that we consider the fundamental human rights. And moving into the next 10 years, if you don't have access to AI, to compute power, to the types of networks that Talitha talked about, I think you're going to be very much left out of a world full of opportunity for those who have that access. Thank you.
Thank you. So, Christopher, there's the three variables that we talked about, which is connectivity, infrastructure, and investment. When you see the world moving forward, it's obviously these three working together in a kind of interdisciplinary way. Where are you seeing the biggest challenge out of the three, or is it just they're working hand in hand, or certain countries, it's more than other countries?
I think it's been very difficult to convince financiers and people with money that poor people are important from a financial point of view. So I think banks and others with money know that poor people are important from a social point of view, but don't necessarily always see capital returns. Having the ability to show with data where that capital can flow in allows us to change that dynamic and allows you to show that if you gave a small loan to an internet service provider somewhere in Sierra Leone, you could see what it's doing and you could actually recover that money. And to me, the biggest gap is in allowing investment money, not charity money, but investment money to see that connectivity in other countries and emerging markets is a viable platform for money to go to and get returns for your businesses. So to me, it's bridging that gap that's the biggest challenge. And I hope that some of the data that we've developed, some of these techniques for showing that will allow us to bring more capital into play, because this is about $1.5 trillion problem if you want to solve it. So it's a big money type issue.
And for some Japanese investors and Japanese companies in the audience, or anybody, what are some good examples of investors that have invested and they have some return?
So one example is the World Bank family of companies, groups, and partners. IFC, which is the International Finance Corporation related to the World Bank, is an active investor in the type of work that we do. They invest in infrastructure projects in emerging markets, and they see returns. There are other regional funds. An example in Africa, based out of South Africa, is called Solcon, S-O-L-C-O-N Capital. They make investments in the fundamental infrastructure, in the fiber that connects countries to each other, and they're able to see returns in 4, 5, 6 years. I mean, it's infrastructure, so sometimes it takes a little longer. But because they're almost the only game in a lot of these countries, of course you have big Japanese concerns, SoftBank, NTT, KDDI, and others, who we believe can also be much more aggressive in this market once they see that there's an opportunity to receive both financial returns, but also returns for their portfolio companies who will benefit from having more dots turn green.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Round of applause. Maja, please.
Great. Thank you. Can you hear me okay? It's turning into a bit of a club atmosphere. Thanks for the patience. We can all get up and dance for a bit. Incredible examples, right? Talitha's story, so touching, and also not unique, right? But no less brave, even if there are billions of people like you who perhaps didn't have the neighbor. And then the examples Christopher gave, also, I love the dots and how individual they are, because they really bring you back to the community level. So what I want to talk about is whether the issue is actually technology, or the issue is a combination of technology and people champion society. And in my opinion, to give away the punchline is you really need both in order to have the technology help to make a lasting difference, right? We've had many initiatives where technology has been brought to people who need it, but they weren't able to use it for a range of reasons, whether it's maintenance or there are other systems that are missing. And so hopefully as a collective, humanity, we are getting smarter about what it means to integrate technology into our lives to make things better for the foreseeable future. So I guess I want to start with this question: what do we talk about when we talk about technological divides and inequality? And I think it's deeper than just technology. And I'd also like to focus on middle-income countries, because that's where, right, we just talked about this, how it's not just digital, it's also other economic barriers that limit resources. But in middle-income countries is where 75% of the world's population lives, and where 62% of the world's poor live, and that's probably highly correlated with people who are disconnected. Middle-income countries produce only 1/3 of global GDP, gross domestic product, but they are still major engines of global growth because they're integrated into supply chains of richer countries. And so middle-income countries are really key to addressing global inequality, whether that's technological inequality or other kinds of inequality, which are always integrated. So at the World Bank, we try to work with governments to strengthen their institutions, reduce poverty, increase prosperity, or what we call shared prosperity across societies. And we look specifically at low-income countries and middle-income countries. In almost every country, you need to be able to attract investment. Right? Investment flows are very important for societies to function. And infusion of technology is kind of the second level you need in order to start lifting people out of poverty. But for middle-income countries, they are quite good at this point at attracting investment and adopting technology. Where they don't do so well sometimes is at having an innovation system that works. And Japan actually figured this out over the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s, where Japan went from being a relatively poor society to now being one of the richest countries in the world. And over that time, it developed the ability to do its own R&D in universities and to bring new technology and new research results into the market. So this chain from the lab, from ideas, doesn't have to be the lab, it could be the village, it could be the community. Ideas and innovation and research can happen in many different ways. But this ability to then translate that into a systemic context, which you have been able to do with your foundation, and which Giga is doing through a different approach. It's very much focused on one of the things that's missing, which is connectivity. So having this chain is what we have found at the World Bank, and I can't take credit for this work, is that you really need all three in order for a middle-income country to move into the next category and lift more people out of poverty than it would otherwise. So the big message is that you need investment, you need technological infusion, but you also really need that innovation ability in a country. And once you have all three, you can start talking about connectivity plugging into an already functional system. Of course, you also need connectivity at other stages. This work, if you're interested in it, comes from the World Development Report 2024. I would recommend it highly. It's a great read. Unfortunately, I can't take any credit for it, but it's a very in-depth look into some of these headlines that I'm giving you today. In terms of what works at the policy level for countries trying to pursue this, there are three main key policy levers. One, making a level playing field, and you can look at that in kind of the private sector sense, so having competition in the private sector, but you can also look at it from an equality point of view. Are girls going to school? Are rural areas accessible? Many other considerations. Does the country or a community reward merit, or is there sort of a way for people to reward their own family members or otherwise control power that is not based on merit? And then, are you keeping up with governance trends and what we are learning about what makes for strong institutions? So without those three, even if you are trying to make a functional innovation system, it doesn't quite work. And perhaps I'd like to just end on a personal note. Before I was born, my father used to work for Fujitsu, both here in Japan, and Fujitsu had offices in the former Yugoslavia, which is where I'm originally from. And so I learned very early on that technology opens doors, and have devoted my career to looking at how technology, society, and entrepreneurship can move societies forward. And I think one lesson for me has been that it's not just technology, and it's not just champions, and it's not even just institutions, but you really need all three to move together. And I think Japan is just such a fantastic example, and unfortunately, it is such a humble country that we don't see you talking about Japan nearly enough, but there's so much that all of us can learn from you. Thank you.
Thank you. Just a question for you, one question if I may. The success stories of middle income countries where World Bank has had impact, and if we're in the audience here, say, let's look at this country because it's gone from this to this. Do you have one or two examples?
Well, I think one used to be a middle income country, which is Japan. It's truly gone to that point of now having an incredible innovation system. I think Costa Rica is another one that's really invested in its own ability to produce innovations and to engage globally in trade. I think almost any high middle income country has gone through that route, starting at a very humble point at some point.
And do you see a difference, say, a lot of people say it's Asia's turn, and Asia's really going to be the one that's rising. Do you see a difference in the regions?
Honestly, every single country I've been to, and it's been over 100, has the potential to have a functional innovation system. And that goes for low-income Asian countries and African countries. I love the experience of Nepal, which is a relatively poor country in Asia, which by connecting its entrepreneurs over time has been able to introduce mobile payments and all kinds of digital technologies that are focused on Nepal and the local market over a relatively short period of time, only in the last 10 years.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So I'd like to open it up to any audience questions. Questions from the audience? We have one
question there, yeah.
And then who's the second question? Where are you? I know you're there somewhere. There we go. We have another one here. Wonderful.
Talking about, so I'm from Uganda originally. How do you deal with the question of governance, and especially at the governmental level, where a lot of people in government are perhaps thinking short-term, rent-seeking for their families, as opposed to thinking about the long-term growth of the country. Can you give examples of lack of governance and how you've overcome that?
I think the
Sure.
question is for you.
Thank you. Hi. So I think,
Your mic, her mic's off for some reason. I don't know why.
Oh.
There we go. Now it's okay.
Okay. So I think in every country, in every government, you have people who are trying to do the right thing and people who are in it for themselves. And I happen to think that it's much more fulfilling to be working for the community than for just one person, even if that person is just yourself. So I think in countries or places, it could be businesses, where you see that the system itself is not rewarding merit, is not trying to do the right thing. I think in those cases you have to figure out who the individuals are who are moving the needle. And really it takes, in some cases, risking your own money, risking in a way your own life, which you did, it takes this kind of commitment, but then when you stand up, you start to recognize that you're not alone, and you realize that there are other people pushing and going for the same thing. So focus, try to look for the people who are doing the right thing and see if you can prop each other up. And of course, connectivity helps with that. Being able to talk and organize is really helpful with that. So, but I think in every country there are glimmers of hope and individuals who are doing this. And in every country that looks extremely successful, there are people doing the opposite thing. So I think having a certain level of entrepreneurial madness is what it takes. I hope that.
Christopher,
I may
you wanna
give
add something?
also an answer that will get me in trouble somewhere, but like, I don't know if you all have noticed it, governments are acting pretty crazy right now around the world. When we do work, and I talked to several very serious investors recently who said they put a lot more trust in companies being around for 8 years or 12 years than any particular person in government. If you put those two things together, I think it's super important to look at how you build a big coalition of people to do these projects, at least in connectivity. If we just work with government, the government changes, everybody's thinking about the next election, blah, blah, blah. If you just work with companies, you're stuck in private interest stuff. If you pick the right people from those different groups and you sort of weave them all together, you create something that's kind of strong as a rope when you pull on it. And so I think that it's about a very different way of thinking than investors used to, because investors used to be like, forget the governments, they're useless, we're just going to put money into VC stuff. And then also, very different from how international, multilateral system used to be when we used to have a multilateral system a year ago, which was like, let's put money into governments, that's going to solve everything, the corporations are evil. It's clearly not either of those. The world has changed dramatically in the last 5 years, and I think anybody working on this type of stuff needs to be able to marry those two well with this aspect of civil society underneath it.
Thank you. We had a second question here. Mike here, second row in the middle, please. Thank you.
Okay, so I raised my hands as a student at the beginning, but actually I've known them because I graduated high school in Canada last year, and now I've been taking a gap year for 1 year and trying to apply to university in Tokyo this summer. And in terms of that, I've kind of came up to this idea of giving opportunity to kids for the education in a poor country especially, and I was thinking of providing them electronic devices that you can use without network, and using AI technologies, because AI has becoming more important and more helpful for us. But when it comes to using AI for educational purposes, there's also constellation of bias, because some countries value as religionist stuff, but the AI is not always right for some purposes, So I wanted to ask you guys about what problems or issues that we are gonna face in terms of improving AI and AI technologies and electronic devices that we can use in foreign countries to improve educational systems.
You've got a new member
I
of
can
your
answer that as
workforce.
well. We have 1 minute, so go ahead.
Well, thank you so much for the question. I think that's great. For me, right, we cannot replace educators with AI or whatever technology that is available today, right? For us at Solve Education, we use technology to support educators and facilitators on the ground so that they can focus on the deep human work in building social, emotional skills of students, character building, and so on and so forth, right? And then help them with this tool so that they can delegate, tasks such as hard skill teaching or delivery with AI. And in order to do that, it's our responsibility as developers and organization to make sure that the AI that we build is safe for these educators to use on the ground. So it's a tool. Back to my point about technology, is a tool. It shouldn't replace the deep human work needed in education. And with regards to the biases, hallucination, race, and so on and so forth, right? There are ways for us to prevent those and make sure that the AI doesn't really take over the whole process of, learning and educating the child. So it really up to us. I think AI is as good as the input that you give to it. So if the input is good, then the output can be great as well. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Well, our time's up. Thank you very much to
wow.
the panelists.
Okay. We're on time.
And I think we'd be available to exchange any cards if anybody wants to exchange any cards with the panelists. Make sure
moderation.
Thank you.
Sure.
Should we take a picture?
Thank you very much. Please give a round of applause to all of the speakers.